Stories from the Bible by Thomas Nelson Publishing. Today's story is about David and Goliath. David was a shepherd boy. He looked after his father's sheep. He had to see that no one came to steal the sheep. If a wild animal came close, he had to chase it away. David had 7 brothers. He was the youngest in the family. One day, as he was tending the sheep in the field, he saw someone coming. He jumped up and he ran to meet him. It was one of his father's servants. The servant said, "Leave the sheep, David. Come back to your father's house. Someone wants to see you. I will look after the sheep while you are gone." David ran quickly to the house. His face was red as he ran inside. His father was standing next to another man and said to David, "This man is called Samuel. He wants to meet you. He has a special job for you to do." Samuel knew that when David grew up, he would be the king of the country. He was still a boy, but God had told Samuel that David was his choice for the next king. Samuel put oil on David's head to show he was God's choice. Samuel talked to David, and then he went away. At that time, the king of the country was a man called Saul. He was not a very good king. Sometimes he felt unhappy and would not speak to anyone. Perhaps if someone played some cheerful music for King Saul, it would make him feel happy, said one of the servants. David could play lovely music on the harp. He was asked to go to the palace and play for King Saul. He played some happy music and sang songs, and soon the king was more cheerful. I want you to stay here at the palace," said King Saul. "Send a message to your father to tell him where you are." David liked being at the palace. He talked to the king about his home and the lambs in the field. Soon after David had gone to the palace, war broke out. King Saul had to get his army ready. Three of David's brothers were in the army, so he had to go back to his father. One day, David took some new bread to his brothers. He liked to go and see the soldiers. David was talking to his brothers when a great shout was heard. A huge man, a giant, was walking towards them. "Who will fight with me?" he roared. "If he wins, then you have won this battle. But if I win, then you all will be in my power." "Who is going to fight him?" asked David. "No one dares fight Goliath," said one of the soldiers. "No one could stand up to a man like that." David knew at once what he should do. He went to King Saul. "I will fight Goliath," he said. "You?" cried King Saul. "You are only a youth. Goliath is a real fighter. You cannot fight him." "I may be small," said David, "but with God's help, I have killed bears and lions, and when they came to steal my father's sheep. Please let me try." King Saul took off the suit of armor which he was wearing, and he put it on David. It was much too big, and he tripped over it. "I cannot wear this," said David. "It is too heavy and too big. Please take it off." The armor was taken off, and David felt much better. He took his sling and he went to a little stream nearby. He chose 5 smooth stones and he put them in a bag. Then he walked toward the giant. Goliath could not believe his eyes. A little boy was coming out to fight him? He put down his great head and he charged. David took one of his stones out of his bag and he put it in his sling. He spun the sling around his head faster and faster, then he let it go. The stone flew through the air and it hit Goliath right in the middle of his forehead. He crashed to the ground like a fallen tree. David ran up to him and he took his sword from Goliath's side. With one blow he cut off Goliath's head. All the soldiers cheered and shouted. The enemy turned and ran away. King Saul spoke to David. "You shall stay with us now. You will not return to your father's house. My son Jonathan will be a good friend to you." Jonathan was very kind to David, and they became like brothers. This is the story of David and Goliath.